Okay, I'm back. What I want you to know about Paul Strand is that he was one of the first straight photographers, meaning that he did not edit his photography at all in the darkroom to speak of. I mean, he certainly was very much different than the pictorialists, where he was not manipulating the negatives. So, um, this is also an example of the abstraction of form and the modernist movement that was going on in America and Europe. Um, so this was a reaction against pictorialism. Okay, Dorothea Lange. I like to remember that Dorothea Lange, I always remember this L that's created by the hand in distress and the baby in her lap. And then you have two small children that are turning their faces away from the camera. Dorothea Lange was hired by the government to go out and take pictures of the sharecroppers in California. And this woman is basically destitute. She's living out of a car, and prior to Dorothea Lange taking these pictures, people, out east and, in places like New York and Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., they didn't really realize that these people were suffering so much. So because of her pictures, a great deal of money was sent out to these people to keep them from starving. So it was a really, really important photojournalist um, project. So Dorothea Lange and the Migrant Mother. Edward Curtis. Edward Curtis was sponsored by J.P. Morgan, who's a very um, famous bank, and he was given a large sum of money to um, uh, document the Native American peoples that were basically being forced off their land by these new immigrants that are flooding the United States at that point in time. So what he did is he created this amazing body of work with over 10,000 photographs of Native Americans. And if you were to look up Edward Curtis, if you follow this link, you will find on edwardcurtis.com that there are several very, very expensive photographs that are worth a lot of money, this being one of them. I've seen this photograph priced at $75,000. Um, but he did kind of dress these Native Americans up, and because of that, it is kind of considered not anthropologically accurate because or historically accurate because he did kind of dress these people up into clothes that they don't necessarily wouldn't have worn. So there is that caveat there, but this is still an amazing body of work of Native Americans. Um, Sorry about that. Okay, Margaret BourkeWhite. This one is really super hard to look at, I realize, but you know, Margaret BourkeWhite, I'm just gonna go ahead and encourage you to click on this because it'll take you to a picture of her. But just to bring it down, Margaret BourkeWhite was a very young, um, attractive, wealthy person in New York City. She was a portrait photographer, and then she ended up getting hired by the U.S. government and the military, and was basically embedded with the U.S. military to go and take pictures and to record what was going on in Germany during the Second World War. So obviously, we are at a Nazi concentration camp. And the one thing I really want to point out with this is the reason why I show this is that you have that US military in the back here, and then you have these Nazi workers walking out. And if you look closely at each one of them, they're all turning their heads in shame or disgust. We really don't know if it's shame or disgust. But the thing is, before we judge these Nazi workers, it's important to remember that had they not gone along with the Nazis, they would have, ended up in this pile here. And it's really hard to even put your head around how horrible this was. But it's just prior to this, people didn't really believe that this was really going on in these concentration camps. So that's why this is very important for us to remember Margaret BourkeWhite's work. I'm going to stop there for this one.